Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in. Look, I really don't plan on taking a whole lot of time and investing it in this topic, but I definitely want to weigh in on it. Probably not for the reason that most people are weighing in on it. I want to step away from the sensational side of things to actually get a little more. Hold on one second. First, group of youngins coming in from school. Um, I don't want to get into the sensational side of things as much as I want to talk about something that I think is being missed in this, and it's something that I'm actually passionate about. You have to be careful when talking about minors. That's how we got messed around the last time. So I want to be very careful what I say. We're not going to mention the young man's name in any way. There won't be any images of him or anything like that. I just want to talk about this for a second. I think that I've put a lot of energy and time in addressing what I consider to be the feminization of the black male image, the direct assault on black manhood, and so much more for over 2 decades in writing and lectures, in my books, in studies, and it's no secret where I stand as far as homosexuality. With that being said, I love my gay brothers and sisters and what other letters they got to identify. I love them all. They're all a part of the black family, and I can have my beliefs and stand firmly on them and still love them. And when it comes to my children, it's unquestionable. We have 13. Most are adults. 8 out of the 13 are adults, with the youngest of the adults having graduated college in December. So we have most of our kids grown. The others are able to communicate well. I haven't had any indication, none have shared with me that they are gay. And I am the parent that most of the kids feel they can talk to. I get all kind of conversations, even from my daughters, things like, you came to me with that. But I've just been that kind of father with my babies. My girls are my babies. I'm a little harder on the boys, but my girls are my babies. My dudes are dudes to a fault almost. So, and here's the thing: if my kids came to me, any one of my kids came to me and told me that they were gay, they would come to me knowing how I feel about it, but they would also come to me knowing that I would love them. Would I co-sign it? No, but I would love them and I would be there for them just like I am with the rest of my kids. Um, would I celebrate some of the stuff they celebrate and be out there with it? Probably not. That's just not me. I can't say I stand for something and then move against it, but I would love them and I would back them in any other way I could. Any other access to me that my kids have, they would have. And certain things, I got kids now that do things that I don't approve of and I don't partake in it. But I love them and I'm there for them. I'm not saying I'm doing it right. I'm saying that's who I am, and I don't demand any other person do it differently. My issue with Dwayne Wade isn't that he accepts his son's sexuality at 12 years old, which I think is a little premature. And I think there's a lot of things going into it. That's not my issue. My issue is, as far as I'm concerned, I love my kids, and there's no way I would disown one of my kids. There's no way that I would dump on one of my kids. But here's where I have a major problem with what D Wade is doing, not in the acceptance of his son's sexuality, but in the exposure to hostility that he's created for his son. I have dealt with numerous people from the gay community who struggle with all types of mental issues. The suicide rate among black gay men is substantial. The exposure to violence is substantial, and a 12-year-old is not emotionally and psychologically prepared to take on the ridicule that the kid is getting now, because the parents think that the best way to show their support is to put him out there on Front Street in an area where one side is going to praise him, but the vast majority are going to find something wrong and ridicule, and you can't protect him from it. Just because social media is there doesn't mean you expose your kids. You guys can count the number of times you've seen any of my minor kids on my social media pages. It's simply because I have a rule with my kids. When you turn 18, if you want to come over and be on any of my social media accounts, you can. Other than that, besides some special moments like my daughter's sweet 16 and my other daughter's not Kensietta, oh Lord, what am I talking about? My other daughter's debutante ball, and another daughter had her 8th grade prom. You know, just moments that like are so, oh wow, that you want to kind of let the world know, and then it's back to normal. I don't put my kids out there. I definitely don't talk about their personal lives. I don't talk about our ins and out. Hello, what's that? Daryl Field, if look, that's my issue, is that they've exposed this kid to way too much too soon in the way of hostility and ridicule at an age and in point of development in life that he is definitely not prepared to take on what they've exposed him to. If you want to be accepting as a father and say, I'm not going to be judgmental, you do you, then that needs to be done under the covering of your love and protection, as if he was any other child. Protect him from the society, because whether he's straight or gay, too much exposure to this world will make him vulnerable to way more than he's ready to take on, and could put him in physical harm's way. You know, there's a lot going on in that family dynamic that I'm definitely not going to touch right now. But sitting up and saying, okay, I accept you for who you are, and then exposing them to expose this kid to, is two different things. Like I said, there's no doubt and no question for anybody who's followed me for more than a month where I stand on homosexuality. But where I stand on homosexuality doesn't change the love that I have for my people, and it definitely doesn't change the love I have for my children. So homosexuality is not a disqualification for my love and concern. It doesn't take me out of a role of being a protector and a provider, not for my kids. But just like with any of my other kids, I'm not going to expose them to a world that they're not prepared to. I still monitor my 17-year-old. She's a senior. She'll be 18 in less than 2 months. And I still monitor her social media engagement. And she's probably up there on YouTube right now while I'm saying this. But I monitor it. And I have her and her little sister, her 15-year-old sister. I have them on where I can monitor them on my app, so I can monitor what they're doing and do as much as I can to protect them. That's my responsibility as a father. Before I am a provider, I am a protector. The first role of the man has to be a protector. You don't expose your children. You don't expose them to a world that can't understand them. You don't expose them to a world that's hostile toward them. You don't expose them to a world that's just looking for something to jump on and destroy. You do not do that. I'm not, and I'm saying, I'm not telling people how to feel. I'm not saying if you are for it, you're wrong. I'm not saying if you're against it, you're wrong. What I'm saying is, as a parent, my responsibility is not simply to make you feel comfortable. My responsibility is to protect you. And so I can sit up and say, if that's what you feel right now, I am only going to tell you that I love you. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you I love you, and that no matter what, I'm going to love you. But at the same point in time, I'm going to keep you behind me while you work your way through this. And at what time you become old enough to step out on your own, then you are able to do this. And hopefully I've given you the tools along the way. Hopefully I've gotten you the counseling you're going to need, because that road is a hard one to navigate. It seems cool. It can be a popular thing. It's a trend now. It's cool to be all this, but nobody's talking about the mental health that comes behind it. I dealt with the people. I know. So my thing is, you need to protect this kid. You need to let him figure out whatever he's figuring out without your influence. Here's what I know. 78% of children who struggle with their sexuality end up choosing their natural assignment at the end of the day. 78%. If you leave them alone, let them figure it out, don't jump on them and push them one way or the other, 78% find their way back to their natural assignment, who they really are. It is not that uncommon for children to struggle with sexual identity, especially when there are a lot of things that are happening that we don't want to talk about. When you have all these different things going on in the home, when you got things that are being swept under the rug, the elephant in the room, incest, childhood sexual abuse, molestation, and so much more, before these kids are ever adults, and before they ever even reach puberty, you're going to have some that have some struggles with some identity. Some have seen things, some have experienced things, all of that. You have to take all that in consideration. But here's what you should not do. You should not push them one way or the other. You should not threaten them one way or the other. What you should do is be the best you can be. Model who you are. I model manhood. I model manhood. I don't think I've ever told one of my sons, I don't want to ever hear you say nothing about being gay. I don't think that's ever come out of my mouth. Now, I have told them, don't you bring no white girl home. I've told them that. And I don't think I've had a problem in that area. I've told them that. But I've never stood up and told them I forbid them to be homosexuals. But what I did do is I modeled manhood, not hypermasculinity, where I'm running around beating my chest, wanting to fight everybody, shoot everybody, and all that. But I modeled manhood. I modeled how to be calm in volatile situations with the fair sex, how to handle the woman when the woman is a little emotional and hostile, how to speak in a margined or measured tone, even when they aren't speaking that way to you, how to remain calm when things get hectic and you need to figure things out. I've modeled manhood to the best of my ability and all of that. I've shown them that at my best, I can fail, and at my worst, I can rise. I've shown them that, and I've let them take from that what they desire to take. And if they come out of it with something different, that's them. They have to live that life. All I can do is love them. But what I will not do is expose them to hostility that can literally destroy them. I will not expose them to something that they're not emotionally and psychologically prepared to handle for the sake of saying I'm supportive. You're making a statement now, and the statement is more about you than it is this 12-year-old kid. I'm a huge fan of Dwayne Wade on the basketball court. And I'm about letting children determine who they are. I am, because so many of our adults now are walking around being what their mothers and their fathers told them and they had to be. And I'm not talking about sexuality now. I'm talking about in their vocations, in their passions. They're not doing what they were designed to do. They're not doing what they love. They're doing what their parents told them they had to do. And they're miserable. I'm not about that. I'm about letting kids find themselves. But what I tell you is nature takes care of what nature takes care of. Again, if you leave them alone, 78% of children who are questioning their sexuality end up choosing their natural assignment if you just leave them the hell alone. Now, we got a lot of influences out there that we have to be aware of. You know, this whole emasculation thing, this whole feminization of the male image thing is on overdrive right now, especially when it comes to the Black male image. And we have to be aware of that and how powerful the imaging is. Visualization and imaging is very, very, very powerful. And we have to be aware of what's going on. What I'm saying in a nutshell, and I hope I've made myself clear, is that you can accept what's going on with your son, and you can still protect him from the realities of his examination of where he's at and what he's feeling and who he identifies with and all of that. It's not just accepting who he is a part of the parenting process, but protecting him is a more prominent part of the parenting process. Sitting up and saying, I've got to protect you. And there will be people who will look at you and see obviously that you're at a certain place in your sexual identity. And for them, I will make sure they understand that I love you for who you are. But I need to keep you back on social media. I need to keep you from being on the front page of all of this going on. What you got to understand, for each side that's sitting up talking about this reasonably, you've got some very evil and angry people who will post things that are solely for the purpose of tearing this kid down and destroying it. It will have nothing to do with the argument of what's right and what's wrong and how you do it. Because see, if you're really truly about right comes at a principle, but never at a price of hatred or destruction. So I can sit up and say, I don't agree with homosexuality. But the moment that I am unable to love a homosexual, I have the problem. I have the problem, because then we can start picking and choosing based off our own values and interests who we're going to love and care and be concerned for in the Black collective. And then we have even further schisms and divisions amongst ourselves. My thing is, I can sit up and say, I don't think homosexuality serves the Black community culturally or socioeconomically in any way that is going to produce the things that we say we're going to produce, especially when it comes to Black males. Why? Because there's already a shortage of 1.5 million Black men who are necessary to model Black manhood. What am I saying by that? I'm saying that we know now there's this wealth of empirical data that tells us that social learning theory requires a modeling of something that can be emulated, that you can talk all day long, you can write it all day long, you can read about it, but children are going to emulate what they see modeled in front of them. That's why it's hard to teach manhood to a child with no man in the house. It just simply is. So in essence, we need those men. So that's one of the reasons why my reasons have nothing to do with religion. My reasons are social, socioeconomic, and cultural. We need the modeling of men. And with so many of us already missing, and then they're targeting another group of us to pull us out of that and put us into a role where we don't represent ideally what manhood is. Yes, we can get good jobs, and you can be effeminate and get good jobs and do everything else. But there's a certain thing about an energy you emit as a man who is representing his masculinity. I'm not talking about destruction. I'm talking about masculinity. And there's a difference. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's toxic behavior. Masculinity in its purity is simply the man carrying out his roles as a man. Protection, provision, spiritual and emotional covering, leadership, teaching, and the sense of identity for his progeny. That's masculinity, period. The ability to stand in front of his people, his family, his wife, his children, and say, not on my watch. To literally be able to speak over his wife, whether it be in prayer, whether it be in proclamation and declaration, depending on whatever the faith system is in the home, to be able to speak over her and to be able to cover her. That's masculinity. All this other stuff, shooting and fighting and killing, that's not masculinity. That's toxic behavior from people who are probably not modeled proper manhood. You start getting testosterone rising around 10, 11, and 12, and you don't have a man to model that model manhood for you and show you how to properly channel all of that new aggression and strength and muscle mass that's starting to develop because of the testosterone, and you will misuse it because you will start to feel frustrated as a Black man, especially. Why? Because you don't have a whole way to exercise the power that you naturally yearn. You naturally yearn to be in a position of power, but there aren't many for you, not in this world. You used to be the head of the home, but you're not that anymore. So you go around and you fight for stuff that's not even yours, or you fight over things that are not even yours because in your mind, that's what power is. Power is fighting over this block. Power is showing this woman she's not going to talk smart to me. Power. I'm not going to get on that, Steve. I hear you. I see it. I got my opinion on it. I've talked about it. But there's a lot going on. Like I said earlier, there's a lot going on in that house that needs to be discussed, but this ain't it. My thing is, if you're going to sit up and say you back the kid, but don't put the kid out there. The kid's not adult. If you want to put your lifestyle out there, which is questionable, and it's been questionable for a while, but if you want to put that out there, that's you. I'm going to love you anyway, bro, because you're a Black man. Until you give me a reason to feel like you're against our people, I got love for you. I ain't feeling what you're doing in that area, but I got love for you. But don't put that kid out there. Don't put that baby out there. He's not old enough to be making those type of decisions and being out there like that. Love him from back here, cover him. Let him figure this thing out without exposure. Because what happens now if all of a sudden it is a phase and he grows out of it? But now the world identifies him as it because you exposed him like that. And now he can't put it behind him. Now you've got all of that emotional stress building up. And now you're hoping that he can cope with it, that he's got the resources, which you do, but that he's going to access and use the resources to build up the coping mechanisms or the pushback he's going to get. The question is that if he chooses all of a sudden he wants to be heterosexual 2 years from now, he gets a thing for a girl. Now, every time he meets a girl, she's asking him, you know, weren't you gay at one time or whatever? And then you get to college and oh my God, you know how college kids are. You got to think about the suicide rate for Black male homosexuals. And you got to think about what you're exposing your kid to for the sake of saying you standing for something and you're being something. Be that. You don't have to prove it to the world. You do need to protect your kid, though. That's going to be it for me. The whole little thing is kind of, you know, I got a lot of questions, but that's not where I want to go with that. I mean, I want to go there, but now ain't the time about that whole little makeup. I mean, the dynamic, it's off. And I'm going to leave it at that. But no matter who's the head of the household, no matter who wearing the pants, no matter what's going on, no matter, you know, what Dwayne's got going on with his own thing is irrelevant. As a parent, it's the responsibility of the parent to protect the kid. So my issue with D-Wade isn't the acceptance of his son's sexuality or what his son believes is a sexual identity. My issue is that needs to be in the house right now. The kid's not old enough to be exposed. And that's where that's where I'm going to end this. So for everybody that's stopping by, you know, feel free to weigh in and share what you feel about it. Again, I'm not saying I got all the answers. I know everything, but the one thing I know, you expose a kid to social media, it will destroy him if it turns on him. You got to be aware of that. That's why I keep up with my kids. They tell me I get on their nerves. They tell me I'm annoying. They tell me a bunch of things, but at the end of the day, I'm protecting you. You ain't got to like me, but I'm going to protect you. You'll thank me for it later. I get too many stories of young babies killing themselves because of bullying on social media. Matter of fact, get this. From ages 5 to 11, the number one demographic are Black kids, 5 to 11. It's the only age group that we lead in suicide statistics. 5 to 11. Yes, this kid is past that age, But another age group that's coming up is Black male teens, adolescents. We got to be aware of what's happening with our children and how social culture is changing an environment. Something that we used to think was even an issue with us has become prevalent because we're not paying attention. Your number one role as a parent is to protect. Protect, prepare. Protect, prepare. On that note, I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. I hear you. I hear you. I've written on it. Create progress. I've definitely written on it. Uh, um, I've written on it immensely, and I hear you. And definitely, you know, it's something. You know, you got to go back and look at NSSM 200, NSSM 2000, which is back 1972. David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, some other people who sat on the board were Margaret Sanger. This was population control memorandum, and they were looking at population control. And if you'll notice, this is right around the time that homosexuality was removed from the DSM as a mental disorder. And those who determine those from the field of psychology who were responsible for determining which disorders would make it into the DSM conceded that they didn't remove it because they believed that it was a natural occurrence, but they removed it for other reasons. And so that's been it. But it has been a thing that has been targeted. And if you look at it, that's when the gay agenda started to build steam at the same time. And it's been progressively normalized over the last 45, 50 years. So, I mean, that's where we're at 45 years. Okay, so I'm going to get off of here. And you guys have a great day. Don't forget to support the work we're doing in the community. On that note, I'm out.